My name is Perniclas Bedow. I'm the founder and co-owner of Bedow Design Studio in Stockholm. It's my last name. It's my dad who decided that the family should be the family name when I was young. And I was thinking of what to call the studio when I started, and I wanted to have something that lasted for a long time. So that became my last name. That was a big question. I think what makes you this designer is, like, design comes from the bottom of your heart, of your beliefs, of your opinions, and everything you do is very personal. Yeah, I think that's where I'm coming from. So I never went to design school, but I went to university and studied language, and I'm quite interested in writing. That's like a big part, I think, for a designer, to be able to formulate what you're doing. I started with design when I left college, when I was 19. I started working by coincidence at Nintendo in Sweden, where I become the one who made their website. I didn't know anything about websites at the time. It was in the mid-90s, but I got to do a 2-day course in HTML and Photoshop to learn the basics. And from there I just moved on, and I thought that this was super interesting. Sweden has been so good at advertising for so many decades, but we don't have this graphic design history. There are only a few people that has made a name for themselves as graphic designers over the years. So the history of graphic design is quite weak, I would say, compared to advertising. And I think that you can see that today. It's a very polarized industry that we're working with. You have either these big agencies that you're talking about, and you have some small studios working with 1 or 2 persons. And there are not so many in our size. We're 6 employees in the studio here. So I think we're pretty unique in Sweden with this size and the clients that we're working with. I don't think it's because there are several different schools. Some of them are more business oriented and some of them are more art schools. But I think that, as I said, the history has made the buyers of design to trust big agencies, because we're coming from advertising agencies. And in Sweden, advertising agencies were still doing design even in the late 90s, when the first branding agencies came in the mid-90s. And even today you see that advertising agencies are getting design and branding assignments. So we have a very strong belief in the advertising industry, and not so strong in the branding. So I think that being a big agency in Sweden is important to getting clients. We also lack an organization, like a national organization for design. There are a few ones that are focused on like illustrating, and there is on advertising, and then it's on like furniture design. But graphic design and graphic design, we don't really have any good organization for that. I don't think nationality necessarily is something that makes it look different. It's more the target group, so if it's a young target group or an older target group. But I mean, there are different cultures, and you have to take that in consideration when you do something. Right now we're working with a packaging project from Georgia, where you have a totally different language, and you have a product which is pretty new to the market. So in that case, I would say that the nationality has some impact of the work we do. But design is so global today. What we experience, if you look at internet, what the trends are, they are pretty global today. So I would say that the target group is the main reason why you want to do something different. Yeah, we did 100 hats, and half of them we sold on our Instagram to raise some money for the homeless people in our neighborhood. I think it's important to work locally and care about the neighborhood. Even though we don't know these people that sit outside here, we see them every day. And it's we're working with UNICEF and UNESCO and Swedish Committee for Afghanistan, but you don't really see what happens with the money that they raise. But in this case, we thought it was something nice to see how we could help out here locally. During the pandemic, we've seen that there's more people now here today than it was 1.5 years ago. I don't know. I don't have any insights in that, but we can see that here there's more people around. I don't know if it's about the pandemic or if there is something else that's happened, but there's a lot of homeless people around this neighborhood. It's hard to say. Maybe there's a little embarrassment about so many people died. If you compare it to the other Nordic countries, Norway and Denmark and Finland were much more good at handling that problem. On the other hand, they had longer lockdowns. We haven't seen the effects of that yet, what a lockdown could cause. So I think there is an embarrassment for all the older people that died, so many. But apart from that, I think that we've handled the economy in a good way. But this is not my main expertise, so this is just my amateur opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a receipt of that you're doing something right. I would say that there are no rights or wrong in design or branding. You can solve a problem in 10 different ways and have the same outcome, and you never know which way is right. But the closest you can come to doing right is that someone else that works 40 hours a week with the same thing as you look at it and say, this is good, this is progressive, it takes a step forward, and it's well crafted. And that is what awards is to us. For the clients, I think that if they recognize an award that they've heard about, that they see that this studio can do as good work as this one's, I think that's positive. I think ingenuity is a word that we talk about. We come from, in Sweden, from a I would say like a Swiss legacy of craft with grids and typography and minimalism. And I think that's great. All these rules that have been created over the decades in graphic design, it's good craft. But I think today it's not enough. It's the foundation of good work, but you have also to put a layer of communication on top of that. And I think that's something that we've been good at, adding that layer of like a brand narrative and coming up with something smart and ingenious to each project. We have a very clear design process, which involves a lot of walking and talking. So before we start working with the actual design, the drawing or visualization, we always summarize the project into a word or a sentence or a tagline. And I think that's very good to avoid frustration during a design process, because there's hundreds of questions that bumps up during a design process. It's not only about colors or typefaces or layout or anything. It's so many questions, and if you can answer those questions before you start, then you have made yourself something good, because if you should answer each and every question individually, it would take you a long time, and it would also risk of being incoherent in the result. So this is very important to us to solve the problem before we start with the visualization. And I think that's what people call a concept. To me, a concept is one answer to several questions. That's how I would define that. There's several parts. I think the first stage, when you research and try to understand the product or service you're going to work with, that's interesting. And when you narrow something down and try to solve it, I think what we do first in our process is that we paint ourselves into a corner, into a limited space, and put up rules. And when you're in that little space, that's when you start being creative. That's when you solve problems within that limitations. And I think that process is really interesting, when you have limited yourself a lot and start solving problems. And it's also very rewarding to showcase something that we worked on for a long time. So when we publish a case on our website and share it in social medias, I think that's fun.
Okay.